Davante Adams, traded by the Packers to the Raiders in 2022. Big first season when Derek Carr was there. Then came 23. Carr gets cut. They bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. We heard just enough from Davante Adams. Bits and pieces, reports and comments. Not all that thrilled with the path of the team. And then, after a fairly disastrous season that resulted in Josh McDaniels being fired, Antonio Pierce being promoted to interim coach, Pierce finally getting the job, then comes the receiver series, the follow-up to the quarterback series. They had to call it receiver because they couldn't get any quarterbacks to do it. I think Matthew Stafford was willing, but nobody else, so they did 5 receivers. Davante Adams, one of them. And the big takeaway from the Davante Adams portion of the receiver series is he wanted to get the hell out of Las Vegas last year. It was unsatisfactory. It was obvious. To the point where I was amazed when this thing came out in July that he hadn't been traded before then. So then some trade talk emerges. There's some suggestion that maybe he'll end up with the Jets, whatever the case may be. But then Davante Adams is like indignant that anybody would dare suggest he wants out of Las Vegas. Dude, we watched the show. Unless that was a body double, that's you wanting out of Las Vegas. And I came to the conclusion that Antonio Pierce approached Davante Adams. And I don't know this, but I think this is just the application of logic and common sense to the circumstances. I think Antonio Pierce went to Davante Adams and said, all right, I got a deal for you, okay? Give me a chance. Just give me a chance. Reminds me of a Seinfeld scene with Jerry and Elaine. Just give me a chance. Season 4, episode 1. Give me a chance. Pre-Mango. And I've completely lost my train of thought while thinking about that episode. But, give me a chance. And if it doesn't work, we'll trade you. One of those deals that I've said from time to time is only worth the paper it's not written on. But you take the leap of faith. Antonio Pierce, a former player, respectful of just that code that, players have. And I think we all should have that. Our word should be our bond. You shouldn't have to have something in writing. You should be able to trust people. And we know there's liars everywhere. But I think this was the loose quid pro quo. Give me a chance. And if you get to the point where you decide you don't want to be here, we'll deal with it. And I think that moment came week 3. Raiders, after somehow beating the Ravens in their own building, come home, and I'm reminded of some of Chris's more colorful phrases of things that you do in your bed that you ordinarily don't do in a bed. 2 of them that Chris will mention from time to time, sometimes in the same breath. But they did that at home against the Panthers. Antonio Pierce says, we got some guys making business decisions. We're going to have to make some business decisions about them. I can't help but wonder whether he was talking about Davante Adams to some degree. I don't know. I don't know who he was talking about. But next thing you know, on Thursday of last week, Davante Adams gets injured in practice. The report comes out over the weekend that late in practice, he pulled up, grabbed his hamstring, and he's week to week with a hamstring injury. And I'm not suggesting that the injury is exaggerated, embellished, or fabricated. The point is, he's got a hamstring injury and he's week to week. And the moment that I saw that report on Saturday night is the moment it all came together for me, and I said, look, he's played his last game with the Raiders. It's done. It's all fitting together exactly the way that the breadcrumb trail would indicate. And I said on Football Night in America, I pointed out the salary next year. That phony baloney, also a phrase used in that same episode I was referring to earlier, that phony baloney Meryl Streep. That phony baloney $35.64 million salary next year and the year after, aimed at taking a $22.9 million per year, 3-year deal and boosting it to 28. We see that from time to time. We talk about it from time to time. Pay no attention to that maximum number that gets leaked to the information robots who thumb race each other on Twitter. The real numbers are in the contract when you break it down and look at it. 22-9, year 3. This is year 3. It's done after this year. He's not going to be back with the Raiders next year. And they'll cut him after this year if he doesn't redo his deal, which means they don't get a compensatory draft pick when he goes somewhere else after this year. So he doesn't want to be here. The only way we get value for the remainder of his contract is by trading him. We're not going to be contenders this year. And that's the one caveat I'll mention in a second. But all things considered, let's trade him. So it's no surprise. It's no surprise. After I planted the flag on Sunday night, expect to hear the chatter of Davante Adams being traded. It's no surprise that here we are, just a couple of days later. And the development, it's almost like once the genie came out of the bottle or the cork came out of the champagne or Pandora's box was open and Pandora was in there, as Sims would say. Once all that happened, it's like one after another. It kind of reminded me of the day that the Aaron Rodgers report started, 2022 draft day. Like, it's fast and furious throughout the course of the day. And before too long, Davante Adams, reportedly, and this comes from NFL media, partially owned by the Raiders, Davante Adams reportedly tells the Raiders he wants out. And then the report comes out that the Raiders are willing to part ways with him for a second-round pick. And the report about Adams wanting out followed a report from the Las Vegas Review-Journal that the Raiders were already reaching out to teams to gauge their interest in a potential Davante Adams trade. So here we are. I mean, it's just a matter of when at this point. And I know he's got an injury, that he's week to week, and I think the week that he's traded is the week that he'll, be closing in on being able to play, whether it's now, whether it's 5 weeks from now. Remember, the window on all trades for 2024 closes coming up in 4 weeks and 6 days. That's it. I'll be stunned if it's not done before that. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.